What's happening around the world and what's happening here at home? A very good evening to you. This is Weekend Primetime News and I'm Sandro Ferdinando. Before we get into our stories in detail, let's take a quick look at your headlines. Terrorist attack in London. 10 dead, including 3 attackers. 48 injured. Death toll from floods and landslides increases to 212. Landslide warning for 7 districts remains in effect. Landslide carves a path creating a waterway through the North Karnataka Mahavidyalaya. US government donates 350 million rupees in aid. Government and opposition exchange barbs over the disaster situation. A bitter exchange of words between Susantika Jayasinghe and the sports minister. For the third time in as many months, Britain is coming to terms with a deadly terrorist attack. 7 people have been killed and 48 injured. 21 are in critical condition. Now, following a raid by police at a flat owned by one of the attackers, 12 people have been arrested in East London. This attack comes just 5 days before the UK general election. Prime Minister Theresa May condemned the latest attack, quote, saying there is far too much tolerance of extremism.
We believe we are experiencing a new trend in the threat we face, as terrorism breeds terrorism, and perpetrators are inspired to attack, not only on the basis of carefully constructed plots after years of planning and training, and not even as lone attackers radicalised online, but by copying one another and often using the crudest of means of attack. But it is time to say enough is enough. Everybody needs to go about their lives as they normally would. Our society should continue to function in accordance with our values. But when it comes to taking on extremism and terrorism, things need to change. And the general election will go ahead, as planned, on Thursday. As a country, our response must be as it has always been when we have been confronted by violence. We must come together, we must pull together, and united, we will take on and defeat our enemies.
The assailants drove a van into pedestrians at high speed on London Bridge. 3 men then abandoned the van and started attacking people at bars and restaurants at nearby popular Borough Market. Armed police rushed to the scene and within 8 minutes of receiving the first emergency call, shortly after 10 p.m. local time, had shot dead the 3 male attackers in Borough Market area near the bridge. The 3 attackers were wearing what looked like explosive vests that were later found to have been hoaxes. The BBC showed a photograph of 2 possible attackers shot by police, one of whom had canisters strapped to his body. The violence turned a summer evening into a scene of panic and chaos.
And they run up, they stabbed this girl, I don't know how many times, 10 times, maybe 15 times. And she was going, help me, and I could not do nothing. I tried to help her. I threw something at her. There was a bike on the floor. I tried to pick up the chair, but it was locked to it, to frighten them, just to get them away from her. I could not do nothing. And when you look at the CCTV, the police they will see me on the CCTV at Borough Market, chasing them, and throwing bottles at them and glasses. I know it's a silly thing to do, but I just tried to save people's life.
I don't understand how they come in, just do it. I don't understand.
Leaders around the world condemned the attack. President Maithripala Sirisena said, "London Bridge terror rampage is a dastardly and cowardly act. My thoughts are with the people of London in this hour of grief." French President Emmanuel Macron was one of the first world leaders to react to the event, saying France was more than ever at Britain's side. 4 French citizens were injured in the attack. US President Donald Trump began tweeting about the incident an hour or so after initial news reports came out calling for his controversial travel ban. A few minutes later, he tweeted a message of support for Londoners.
For the impact of these attacks on the upcoming general election, Newsfirst talked to British journalist John Stapleton in London.
Action will go ahead. The Prime Minister Theresa May has just come out of a meeting of COBRA, that's the committee of senior politicians and security experts, and she said emphatically that the election will go ahead, and quite rightly too, in my view, because to give in and to spend something as important as an election because of an attack like this will be giving in to the terrorists. That's exactly what they would want. She also announced a number of other measures from this Cobra meeting, saying enough is enough, and a whole host of changes, I think, now in the pipeline as a consequence of this attack, not least a crackdown on internet operators who are giving safe space to those who spread what is regarded by many as wicked ideology, and also perhaps an increase in sentences for those found guilty of this kind of offence are among the things she suggested may well happen. The opinion polls this morning here in London are saying that, well, some of them anyway, are saying that it's currently neck and neck between her and Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party. But I suspect that what she's had to say today outside Downing Street, outside number 10 Downing Street, could well be a bit of a game changer, because she's talking about the need to actually sort of defeat what she regards as a perversion of Islam, as I say, crackdown on internet operators, a difficult conversation to be had with leaders of Muslim communities throughout Britain, and reviewing the possibility, in a way, of reviewing custodial sentences for those found guilty. And I think that's the kind of language that people here in Britain want to hear.
Less than 2 weeks ago, an Islamist suicide bomber killed 22 people, including children, at a concert by US singer Ariana Grande in Manchester, North England. Grande and other acts are due to give a benefit concert at Manchester's Old Trafford Cricket Ground on Sunday evening to raise funds for victims of the concert bombing and their families. Police said the event would go ahead as planned, but security would be increased.
Meanwhile, here in Sri Lanka, the death toll from floods and landslides triggered by heavy downpours has risen to 212. According to the reports from the Disaster Management Centre, 78 people are still unaccounted for. Now, people who were trapped by the disaster situations have taken to social media platforms to share their plight and their experiences. Newsfirst now reports on a number of rescue operations and the experience of the people who were affected by the floods. A family including 2 children were caught in the current when the Ratnapura town flooded. A person from an adjacent building was able to rescue the family. A man caught in the floods in the Bandanayaka Mawata in Ratnapura was saved by another youth. Mudunkotu College in East Ahaliagode was inundated with flood water. The people, together with the security forces, battled to rescue the people in the affected areas. The relief team sent out by the Divitura Divisional Secretariat in Velvitia rescued a family surrounded by floodwater in the lower Velvitia area in Gaul. 6 people and a child were saved in the incident. As the water is gradually receding, life is gradually returning back to normal for those affected by the floods. However, residents in some areas are still under the threat of landslides. Locals of the Bulat Singhla Divisional Secretariat had evacuated from their homes due to a threat of a section of the Tibbottava mountain giving way. The Divisional Secretary of Bulat Singhla, Sisir Kumara Senadira, said that cracks could be seen on the Tibbottava mountain. 30 families living close to the mountain were evacuated.
ගොඩක් ඉන්නේ කුලී වැඩ කළ ජීවත් වෙන පුජ්‍යලීන් ඒ හින්දා ඒ දැන් ඉවත් වෙන්න කිව්වට ගොඩක් මිනිසුන්ට ඉවත් වෙන්න ස්ථාන නැහැ.
The Samanalagam area in Hatton is also at the risk of experiencing a landslide, forcing the evacuation of 12 families in the area. According to reports, locals had refused to evacuate from the area despite the numerous attempts of Grama Seva officials and the police.
යන්න කියලා තමයි කිව්වේ එතන කාමර වගේක් තියෙනවා ඒ වගේ ගිහින් ඉන්න කියලා. ඉතින් ඇත්තටම අපිට එහෙම යන්න අපහසුයි. මේක නෙමෙයි අපිට අවශ්‍ය විසඳුම.
A 7-day almsgiving was held at the Kiribadgala Sri Shalya Darshanarama today to commemorate the 26 lives lost in the Kiribadgala mountain landslide. 6 homes were destroyed when a landslide hit the Tibbotua mountain in the Karandana area on the Horana Road. Vehicular movement was also disrupted on the Horana Road as a result. The landslide blocked the Karandana waterway, causing a stream of water to flow across the Karandana North High School. The main office and the library of the school are also destroyed. Meanwhile, an early landslide warning had been issued for 7 districts in the country. The landslide warning has been issued to the districts of Ratnapura, Kegol, Gaul, Kalutara, Matara, Hambantota and Nuwara. The National Building Research Organization has urged those living on steep slopes to be watchful of pre-landslide signs like slanted trees or posts, development of cracks on the ground or buildings, and sudden appearance of muddy water from the ground or from springs. The MBRO urges the residents of these districts to immediately evacuate from the area if such pre-landslide signs are observed. The Ministry of Disaster Management announced a sum of 266 million rupees has been provided to divisional secretariats as relief to those displaced by the adverse weather. Minister Anura Priyadarshana said that measures will be taken to systematically issue more funds in the future, and he went on to note that the renovation of buildings and homes affected are being carried out expeditiously. Minister Anura Priyadarshana said that the government is in search of lands to be provided for the construction of houses for those who lost their homes in the disaster. Now, looking ahead to what the weather holds for us in the coming week, we now go over to Shayan Chirampati in Studio 3.
Thank you very much, Sandru. Well, the Department of Meteorology has forecast showers in the western, Sabarogama, southern, central and northwestern provinces of the country tomorrow. It has also forecast thunder showers, thunder showers tomorrow in the Uva and eastern provinces and the Anuradhapura district after 2 p.m. Now, if you take a look at the weather forecast on the official website of Meteor Blue, it says partly cloudy conditions are expected tomorrow, with temperatures expected to remain at 27 degrees Celsius during the day, and is expected to drop during the nights to 22 degrees Celsius. Wind speeds are expected to be southwesterly in direction and at 32 kilometers per hour. If you take a look at Tuesday, slightly different from Monday, with a mixture of sunny weather and thunder showers, with temperatures again expected to remain as same as Monday, with 27 degrees during the day and 22 degrees during the night. Wind speeds are expected to be southwesterly in direction at 30 kilometers per hour. Now, the Department of Meteorology does say that fairly strong winds of about 50 kilometers per hour could be expected over Matale and Polonnaruwa districts tomorrow. Now, if you take a look at the sea areas of Sri Lanka, showers will occur at times in the sea area off the coast extending from Putlam to Matara via Colombo and Galle. Now, the sea area off the coast extending from Putlam to Trincomalee further up north and east via Kankasundra and Matara to Pottuwil via Hambantota can be rough at times, as the wind speed can increase up to 60 kilometers per hour. Well, that is keeping you up to date of the weather situation and weather forecast for the next 24 hours. Well, it's back to you, Sandharu.
Thank you, Shaheen. Well, for a second day, the government, the V Squad deployed to assist in the clean-up operation in disaster-affected areas, continued their service in the Galle district today.
The Gamma V Squad assisted residents of the Divitura Administrative Division in Valuvitia today. Volunteers from across the island are participating in this endeavour. It was only yesterday the water completely receded. There are delays in cleaning up wells and houses, and electricity supply is still halted due to certain issues in houses. If those issues can be resolved, I think we will be able to bring normality back to the lives of locals. Esron Lanka and Kivilton Electrical Products are also supporting the Gammadha V Squad initiative. The volunteers succeeded in reaching out to the residents of Kutiyawatha, Idaliya, Nugethota, Divitura East, Lower Valuvitia, Wadu Dakuna and North Nabaratha. Volunteers assisted in cleaning wells, homes and public facilities. Wells which were cleaned by public health inspectors from the Galle district were chlorinated as part of the endeavour. The Sirasa Shakti TV1 Suvayatra, which was launched to provide first aid services to victims of the disaster, was also conducted parallel to the Gammadha V Squad operation. Many doctors and nurses have volunteered their services for this endeavour.
We are not doing this for money. You invited us to join hands with you, and we are doing this wholeheartedly, treating it as if it's our own initiative.
We are happy to help those who are helpless. This is my second time. I have been waiting to help those who are affected.
The United States government has extended a financial donation of 350 million rupees to Sri Lanka. The donation will assist in the government's program to rebuild houses destroyed in floods and landslides during the recent adverse weather conditions.
The financial donation was handed over to President Maithripala Sirisena by US Ambassador to Sri Lanka Atul Keshap at the Presidential Secretariat. The United States government also agreed to provide a financial grant of 12 million rupees to Sri Lanka to help improve the technical knowledge of the youth in the country. The grant will be provided during a course of 4 years. Ambassador Atul Keshap said a group of American representatives are engaged in cleanup operations at schools which were affected by the adverse weather in the Kalutara district, adding that these operations will be carried out continuously.
The ministers appointed by the President to look into the development of areas affected by the weather visited those areas today. Minister of Petroleum Resources Development, Arjuna Ranatunga, inspected the affected areas in the Kalutara district and discussed the situation with state officials.
The efforts of the state officials should be commended, especially the task carried out by the Triforces and the divisional secretaries. The politicians should get out of the way of the officials and let them do their job. Even the President appointed us to monitor the situation. He said the commitment of the officials is what will get us through.
Minister Faisal Mustafa arrived in the Tangol area in the Hambantara district today to inquire into the issues faced by the people who are affected. Minister Mustafa was accompanied by Minister Sajith Premadasa.
Regardless of how much the truth is bitter, nature has taught a lesson to all people living in illegal settlements. A massive calamity was caused. Lots of lives were lost due to these illegal settlements. Certain politicians have given the green light for illegal settlements across the country for their short-term and petty political mileage. The political authority in this district has promised that they will fight against these illegal buildings and remove them.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Ravi Karanayaka visited the Mathura district today and held discussions with the government officials.
When I was the Minister of Finance, one of the first things I did was to insure all the households for natural disasters. The whole world looked at us and said that something that has not been anywhere else in the world has been done in Sri Lanka. The government officials have to go to these locations, inspect them and ascertain the damage. Then these insurance companies will grant the relevant insurance claims.
You're with News First, and up next is Action TV.
The extent of the failure to predict the disaster situation which affected 8 districts, amounting to the biggest natural disaster the country has faced in the 12 years since the tsunami, makes it evident that priority should be given to managing the work ethic of the competent authorities ahead of disaster management. The fact that insurance compensation, which should have been paid to victims of the floods which occurred in May last year, has not been paid to date, is evidence of the mismanagement on the part of the responsible officials. While the National Insurance Trust Fund launched a National Disaster Insurance Scheme in March 2016, the scheme was reinsured too. As a result of the reinsuring of the insurance scheme, the National Insurance Trust Fund received a sum of 5 billion rupees following the floods which occurred on the 14th of May last year. Of this sum, the National Insurance Trust Fund released a total of 3.9 billion rupees to the Ministry of Disaster Management to pay compensation for loss of life and damage to property. The National Insurance Trust Fund will only be able to disburse money to pay compensation for those affected by the floods and landslides this year if the government in turn allocates a sum of 15 billion rupees for the fund. This is because the National Insurance Trust Fund has failed to pay the annual premium of 800 million rupees to the Singaporean company which reinsured the fund. Coverage for all of Sri Lanka amounts to 15 billion rupees. Of the 15 billion rupees, 14 billion has been reinsured.
Billion 15 billion 14ක් ප්‍රතිරක්ෂණය කරලා තියෙනවා.
එතකොට දැන් කොහෙද මේ ප්‍රතිරක්ෂණය කරලා?
මේ ප්‍රතිරක්ෂණය කරලා
It has been done by a Singaporean reinsurance company.
ප්‍රතිරක්ෂණ සමාගමත් සමග.
එතකොට දැන් මාර්තු 31 අවසන් වෙච්ච මේ ප්‍රතිරක්ෂණය කවුදද?
We are yet to pay the premium for this year. We received the approval of the Cabinet of Ministers recently. The reinsurance coverage will not come into effect simply because the Cabinet of Ministers has decided to pay the premium. It only comes into effect once the premium payment has actually been made. As such, the National Insurance Trust Fund will not receive the reinsurance payment of 14 billion rupees to pay compensation for the current disaster situation. If the premium is paid now, the money will only be disbursed in the event of a future disaster. As such, shouldn't the government tell the country how it plans to raise the funds to pay compensation for victims of the current disaster? Secretary to the Ministry of National Policies and Economic Affairs, over to you.
When delivering aid in the Tangal area today, Minister Sajith Premadasa remarked on the quality of homes built following the tsunami and promised the same mistakes would not be made again.
Bottles of drinking water were provided today to the residents of Pahajava in the Tangal Administrative Division. Many houses that were built for those affected by the tsunami are now in ruins. This is a result of many irregularities that took place during construction at that time. Therefore, this time, the government is providing a compensation of maximum of rupees 2.5 million for over 10,000 persons who are affected, and it should be noted that this has not been done before. It should also be noted that when we build houses, we will ensure that these houses will not crumble. Good governance means uplifting the standard of living of the people who are affected without any fraud or malpractice. If fraud and malpractice occurs, we will be pushing the people affected by the floods into a terrible hell.
Olympic silver medalist Susantika Jayasinghe says she has not received the due recognition and respect within Sri Lanka's sports sector. At a media briefing held in Pandavasnuwara today, Sports Minister Dasi Jayasekara responded to the allegations.
We are professional athletes. During this time, we received sponsorships from private banks and other institutions, so we did not have economic difficulties. Unfortunately, today, there is no system at the sports ministry or in the country for us.
Susantika Jayasinghe.
I totally reject the allegation made by Susantika Jayasinghe. Prior to the election of this government, a payment of 80,000 rupees was made from the sports fund. Because I wanted Susantika Jayasinghe to be treated with respect, I put forward a cabinet paper to recruit her as an advisor with a monthly wage of 75,000 rupees and a vehicle as well. But cabinet approval was granted for a wage of 60,000 rupees until 2020.
I saw on a TV channel yesterday that the minister had said that Susantika's words were twisted. I say to the minister with responsibility that sports as a whole has been twisted. Athletics propel this country onto the world stage, but there isn't a single international stadium for athletes. It is the authorities and the officials that are responsible for the destruction of this sport.
I entrusted the responsibility to Susantika and asked her to take over the 3 athletics squads in the country. I did not meet her again after that. We established an office for her at the Department of Sports Science, but she has never come into office and worked.
Sports is not like the arts. Major sacrifices have to be made. We need to train for 4 years for the Olympics in order to qualify. You cannot engage in sport the way the sports minister engages in part-time acting.
We must remember that she is an Olympian and that she brought great honor and respect to our country. There are many athletes in the country and we have done what we can for them. We cannot do what is beyond our power.
Only after I made a statement at an award ceremony did the sports minister call and obviously ask me to collect the check. On the political stage, the sports minister says that I brought Olympic victory to the country. 60,000 rupees is not the value of what he says. You may be the sports minister, but I am the only woman in Asia to have achieved such a historic victory for this country.
At an award ceremony where I was the chief guest, she had said that the government has not assisted them in any way. I am saddened by this. I did not berate her and ask her to come to collect the check. I am not a person who will ever speak in that way. I asked her whether she had forgotten that she receives a salary from this ministry.
My medal is the greatest treasure I have. I think I can speak to the entire world and get the appropriate value for this medal. I decided to live with the value of the victory, which is just a decision.
Susantika Jayasinghe does not need to sell her medal to live. We are paying her 60,000 rupees a month until 2020. We are prepared to pay this in the future as well. In addition to this, she has been given a vehicle. We have asked her to come to work, but she has not cited the ministry. I think that she wants to move to Australia now, which is why she is talking of selling her medal in order to portray an injustice and earn the sympathy of Sri Lankans living across the world.
And for those of you who follow in the ICC Champions Trophy, in spite of interruptions due to rain, India's batsmen posted a daunting total of 319 for the loss of 3 wickets in 48 overs in their group encounter versus Ashrafat's Pakistan. Chasing a revised target of 324 in 48 overs, Pakistan were on 22 runs for the loss of no wickets when rain stopped play just shy of the end of the 5th over. And that's a wrap of Primetime News. Take care and good night.